guys, and welcome back to my author interviews. Today we have Ashley Munoz, and I hope I pronounced your last name right, so I apologise if I didn't. Please bear with me because I am doing it on my iPhone due to my camera stand not working. I'll try and get that fixed for next week. So today we have Ashley on with us, and I followed Ashley from the very beginning when I was starting out as an author. In fact, when I asked a question, she was very polite in telling me all the different things that she's learned, so it was nice. And I've read one of her books so far, which was her debut, Glimmer, and I can't recommend it enough. It was an amazing read, and I wasn't expecting it. Not that I wasn't expecting her to be amazing, but I wasn't expecting the emotions that I felt while I was reading it. Only certain books can do that to me, and hers is one of them. Now, Fade is high up on my to be read list, and so is her other book that she wrote with a best friend. So yeah, I think we're good to go, and I'd like you all to meet Ashley. So this interview with Ashley was meant to be on last Monday, but we were just getting technical side of it all. It just wasn't going right, and apparently it still doesn't want to go right. But we finally got it up, and it's going to be an amazing interview, and she answers some of these questions really good. So if you are an author starting out, you're even an author now and you're trying to get another book out, Ashley does give some really good advice. So listen in, perk your ears up, get some popcorn, maybe a cuppa, and yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Hi Sophie, it's so good to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do this interview and for just having me on this. It's just so exciting.
Thank you, Ashley, for joining me. Now to the questions. When did you start writing?
So as far as when I started writing, gosh, I remember I was just obsessed with writing even in high school. It's just always been something that has been really important to me, a really big outlet for me. As far as like professionally writing, publishing, that type of thing, it's been about a year and a half. I debuted September of 2018, so I guess it took me about 9 months or so to write my book. So yeah, it hasn't been super duper long. I'm still very, very fresh, very new in this industry, and I'm loving it. It's really, really exciting. So yeah.
So it's been quite a year for you, Ashley. That's amazing. What authors have inspired your writing the most?
As far as what authors have inspired me, man, the list is really, really long. But I would say right off the top of my head, Mariana Zapata is definitely number one. I would say L.J. Shen, Penny Reed, Debby Perry. I mean, these are all people. Maria Louise. These are just amazing people who have inspired me to write. Yeah, just the list is just so, so long. Anyone who can take a story and just unfold it. L.J. Shen is a huge inspiration to me. I will say that my writing style I didn't go that route with my writing style. So as far as inspiration, I didn't draw from her style, but the way that she can write, it definitely made me want to go write. It's just incredible.
Thank you for sharing with us. So, do you schedule your writing sessions, or do you simply get to writing whenever you can find the time? As I know that you have kids yourself, and so do I, and I know many other authors do. So how do you find the time to write with children?
I do not schedule my writing sessions. I am what's called a pantser. It's kind of an odd term, but a pantser is essentially someone who just writes what comes to them, and I'm very much that. I don't really schedule a lot, although I do try to stay organized. but it depends. If something comes to me at 2 o'clock in the morning, then I hop out of bed and I will start writing. Or I'll grab my phone and jot something down into Google Docs. So,
What genre do you write in?
I write right now. I currently write in contemporary romance. That seems to be the genre that I've kind of snuck into. I do have a current work in progress that is a young adult fantasy, so that's going to be really exciting. I love reading about PNR or like paranormal books. I would love to write one day, but I haven't yet. So yeah, as of right now, it's just contemporary romance is where I'm at. So
So, as I've mentioned at the beginning, I loved your debut, Glimmer. It is one of my favourite reads so far. For those watching, tell us a little bit more about it.
oh, thank you so much for reading Glimmer. I always love it when I get to hear about people who read the book and who enjoyed the book. So I appreciate that. So Glimmer is my debut novel. It's what started me out in this whole thing. To tell you a little bit about it, well, it is a little big. I plan on showing you guys some of these earlier or later, but this is Glimmer, and as you can see, it's a little thick. As far as what it's about, it is about a single dad who was a part of a motorcycle club, really violent, really dangerous, and the whole book starts out with his basically his exodus from that group, and really just trying his best at being a single dad for his two kids. But it's more of a temporary situation. He knows that one day he will have to go back and kind of face all of that. So it's been 5 years. The prologue starts out, and then we get to see everything 5 years later. And that's where he meets Ramsey, who is someone she's moved back to live with her mom, who is terminal, and she's just trying to she's grieving the potential loss of her mother, but she's very lonely. And then she meets Jimmy and his family, and so there's this connection, and then Jimmy's past comes back into play, and there's just this tug of war about how he can keep Ramsey safe and separate from this life that's trying to take over his world again. And it's all very angsty. Yeah, that's my debut, Glimmer. It's my baby. It's my first love. I absolutely love the book. So yeah, that's the one.
How many books do you have in total? The rest of me is exploding into the world soon, and I can't wait to read that one. Tell us a little bit more about all your books.
As far as how many books I have out in total, I always say it depends if you count novellas, which a novella is it's basically not a full-length novel. So plenty of authors have written amazing novellas that have added to their career. My novella is quite short. It's only 95 pages, so that's why sometimes I ask that. But I have a total of coming in October will be my 5th published book. I have Glimmer, At First Fight is the novella, Fade, What Are the Chances, and then The Rest of Me is my next book, so a total of 5. The Rest of Me, oh gosh, that book. So that is coming October 18th. It will release live into Kindle Unlimited. You can still purchase it if you don't have Kindle Unlimited. It will probably be $2.99 would be my guess. But there's no pre-order or anything like that. But the book, The Rest of Me, and I wish I had a cover here to show you. I don't have one with me right now. I'm so sad. But that book is going to be, it's just incredible. So it was inspired by the loss of my father. My father remarried quite a few years ago, and he had younger kids with his wife, and then he tragically died very, very suddenly at the age of 55. So he left behind not only his 4 older children, but then he had 4 younger kids with his new wife. And the grieving process was just so intricate, honestly, because grieving my father as an adult versus seeing my very young siblings grieve his presence, that he was there. He was their soccer coach and their football coach. My dad taught special education and helped with PE classes, so he was very present in their life. So their process of grief. So that's what really started this whole journey of writing about somebody who's grieving the loss of a father and a husband and all of that. So it's about someone who's facing that. Layla is the main character, single mother with 4 children who's facing this new world without her husband. And the whole book is set in Wyoming, small town Wyoming. And then you have Reed, who has his own demons, and he's returned back to the city, and he meets Layla, and she's desperate to get her kids healing because they're grieving and it's not going well. And she heard that there's quite an effective way to have them heal through horse therapy, but they don't want to get on horses. So she looks up the local horse instructor, and happens to be Reed, her neighbor, who she does not like, and they did not get along. So very enemies to lovers type of angst. But there's a lot to this book, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of people who've left reviews saying the book left them with their jaw on the floor, just didn't see it coming, didn't see things happening the way they thought. So I'm so excited for that book to be released into the world. It's going to be incredible. So I do want to share with you guys too my books, I guess. I did show you Glimmer. The rest of me, I don't have a cover because it's in with my proofreader right now. But Glimmer was my first baby. At First Fight is my novella. I don't have that in print because it's too short to print. This is my second full-length novel, Fade, which is interconnected with Glimmer, has the characters from Glimmer and their own story. It can be read as a standalone, though. And then I wrote a book with my best friend. She's also an author, so it's not weird. But we wrote this book about an international comedy. An American goes to Ireland seeking out some of her roots and her family, and she is stuck with this jerky Irishman, and it's just adorable. It's one of my favorite stories of all time. So those are my 3 published books that I have here. Then my novella and my other book. It's not coming out yet. So
thank you for sharing. So I can't imagine the loss that you've been through. I've never had to go through losing a family member so close to me, especially my mum or my dad. So that is heartbreaking, but I think you've come through it at a good end. There's worse ends to be at. And you've definitely put yourself into writing, and it's helped you a lot. I know writing helped me when I was in a very deep place. Depression, anxiety. I think writing was a place to go to try and get myself away from that, and I knew I needed to help myself. So I can definitely relate in that situation. But just remember, you are amazing. All the links are below to be able to buy any of the books that you would like of Ashley's, and I highly recommend that she is an amazing author. So what part of creating a book and getting it published was the hardest part for you?
As far as parts of creating a book and getting published, what was the hardest part? Honestly, I would say it's just knowing where to start. When I was first starting out with this whole indie publishing thing, I just didn't know where to start. I wasn't sure, because there's so many different people who tell you, like, oh, make sure you do this first, and it overwhelms me, honestly. And I didn't know what to do. So honestly, what I did was I did the best that I could. But as far as what the hardest part was, the expectation. Because once you set your book out into the world, you're expecting things to happen. You're expecting people to respond to your books and to your work and to everything you've poured into it. And honestly, the first book, the expectation fell really flat. I was like, whoa, it's not being, I don't know, I guess there's this weird expectation I had of like, and then everyone will love me and everyone will be so excited and whatever. It doesn't quite work like that. So that was definitely an eye-opener, and I would say that continues to be the hardest thing. Imposter syndrome is very hard, where you constantly think that you shouldn't be a writer, or you shouldn't do this, you're not good enough. That is the hardest thing. So honestly, you can do all the research and everything you possibly can think of to put into publishing your book, and the craft and the editing and all of the different things. But really, at the end of the day, the hardest part of being an indie author, or really any author, is getting over how it's received by people. Reviews, the hype, whether or not people are excited or talking about it, or, you know, how fast someone can move on from it, or doesn't read it, or does read it. And then, you know, just that part of, should I do this? Am I good at this? So I would say that's the hardest part.
Yes, I have to agree with that. And I think a lot of other authors and writers will agree. It's very hard. I've found recently, I've got my book out. Maybe not so much now, but at the beginning I wanted it to explode a little more than what it did. But I did enjoy every single response. Some reviews I was sort of like, oh, why aren't they grasping the context of the book? Other reviews I completely understood. I think reviews can be the hardest thing, and it can knock you down a lot, and it can make you feel like you don't want to write anymore, but we have to keep going because that's life. Which part of creating a book and getting it published is the easiest part?
As far as what part was the easiest, honestly, there's so much content out there for us to get our hands on. The easiest part was writing. I love writing. That's always the easiest part, is getting the story put together, getting the story out. My very first book, Glimmer, you know, I wrote over 75% of that book from my cell phone in my Google app. Because I was nursing my newborn son at all hours of the night, and I have 4 children, and there's just a lot going on. I didn't always have time to just sit down at a computer. However, with that said, it was still the easiest part of publishing. So I wish that I could tell you it was marketing. I wish I could tell you it was figuring out how to get your books into Kindle Unlimited and how to get your books in front of audiences, but nothing about publishing is really easy except for writing. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. What are you currently working on?
As far as what I'm currently working on, you know, I've got The Rest of Me that's with my proofreader right now, so that's still very much in my head. But I do have another project. I've got a couple of works in progress. That my next book that'll come out in 2020, probably spring, is a book called Tennessee Truths. And that is about, I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be small town Tennessee. It's about a girl who has to go back home and face down the one person who hurt her the most. And it's definitely going to be, I don't want to call it enemies to lovers, because it's more of a lovers to enemies. She goes back home, and he is not a fan. He is not excited by her presence, but she really has no idea why he doesn't like her. She has no idea what happened. She's very much in the dark, and so there's this unfolding story of his side of things and what happened and her side of things, and it's just very exciting. So I'm excited to keep working on that. It's going to be really, really good.
Okay, so as you know, or anybody in that who watches these videos or watches my Instagram and reads my posts, if you don't, then that's my Instagram. I'm a quote freak. So I like loads of quotes, and I like to quote them, and I like to see what your quotes are, like what quotes you like. So I've decided to ask this question to all now. What is your favourite quote of all time?
My favorite quote of all time? Oh, geez. I would have to say the one that sticks in my head the most and that encourages me to write is write the story you want to read. I didn't come up with that quote, obviously. I read it somewhere. Write the story you want to read. That has pushed me to keep going. That has pushed me to keep writing. That has pushed me to keep just push, because I love reading. I love getting lost in stories. And in fact, my own story is, in order to process the grief of my dad a couple years ago, I really dove into reading. I didn't really know anything about having a Kindle or Kindle app on my phone, or what Kindle Unlimited was. I didn't know any of that. I knew that I liked to go to Barnes & Noble and find books in the library, but beyond that, I just didn't really know. And then my dad died, and I just didn't know how to process it. I didn't know what to do or how to, I just didn't know how to deal. And my sister told me to download the Kindle app, and she recommended Mariana Zapata, her Wall of Winnipeg and Me. And it took me out of my grief, and it took me to this different place, and it was just so magical. And then I just read all of her books, and then I was like, oh, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And then I got to a point where I was like, man, I have an idea for this story, and I would love it if I could read it. And it just hit me. I was like, well, I should write it, because I want to write the story that I want to read. So anyway, as far as quotes go, that's the one. And, I have another one. It's so odd. I took a picture of it because I was in a workbook a couple years ago, and I found this quote. I keep it pinned up on my board. I'll grab it really quick. But it's this that says, "Be who you were created to be." I don't know who wrote it. Somebody jotted it down in a notebook. But I love it because I think all of us were created with some type of passion and desire, and I think it's always a journey to try and figure out how to get back there, But no matter what, at the end of the day, be you, be authentic. It doesn't matter if it measures up to society or to culture, just be you, So anyways, soapbox.
Thank you so much for doing this. Would you like to add anything else to those watching and listening today?
Oh my gosh, I am so grateful to have been featured, and thank you so much for having me, and I love your work. I'm so excited about your book. So thank you. And yeah, I'll make sure that I drop some links for anybody who's interested. You can follow my stuff. And again, I'm so sorry that I'm kind of crazy. I have 4 kids, and it's just life, and I'm just going to be me. So everyone, thanks again.
For those of you who aren't following Ashley, then this is her social media account. This is her Instagram and her Facebook. You should totally check it out for updates and on for her journey, and you should add her new release on your to be read list. Thank you for watching. I'm Sophie, and this is Author, Writers, Creatives Interview. If you'd like to be involved, drop me a message, and I'm sure we can sort something out. But stay tuned for next week. Bye guys.